locations, in other areas. I'm not here to say these are fraud. I'm here to say they're irregularities. They have to be resolved. And it's the Secretary of State's absolute, almost sacred duty to maintain these rolls in pristine condition, certainly condition much better than what we're seeing them maintained. And the technology is there. The Secretary of State of Mississippi and other states need to embrace technology because, Rob, it's the same technology that the other side is using to go into these things and use those bad registrations and turn them into votes that should not be counted. So I'm always careful in my wording here. I'm not chasing a voter. I'm chasing bad information in a voter record. And if it turns out to be a bad voter, so be it.
Let's just be clear, though, it was the Fractal gentleman who's running the video. That's the Mississippi report that used the term ineligible voters. Glad you clarified that. So how many of these incorrect or questionable registrations exist in just Mississippi? I mean, who puts the date in?
Yeah, well, the dates are typically put in by the person who does the registration, a circuit clerk in one of our 82 counties, a voter registration drive person, possibly an NGO, federally or state funded, who's on the college campus or some other place registering voters. But at the end of the day, it has to move through the county to the county circuit clerk. The clerk enters the information into the record, and that registration date is not what a voter might have put on. That is entered by a government official. So that makes it even worse. That pours salt on the wound right there, knowing that this is an official entering these bad dates. Now let's throw some numbers out because it's the numbers that are impressive here. We compared the voter registration roll in Mississippi to the National Change of Address database. We found over 133,000 addresses that are invalid addresses. They're just not actual correct addresses. We found 130,000 odd who show that they have moved either out of the state or far enough away from their original location to that their addresses aren't deliverable. So these people need to be reconciled. There's a process to do this, and our secretary needs to throw everything he's got at doing it and doing it correctly and maintaining a voter roll that even Fractal would have a problem finding an issue with.
We're gonna look at address. We're going to look at addresses specifically in the next segment. Let's go over to the audience. We've got some hands up over there. Take another question. Kat and Shell, who's next?
Go ahead, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rob. And yeah, Julie out here in Butte County, California. So question for Alan. I ran for county supervisor here on the March 5th primary, and I lost. I was America First, and they went with establishment. And I'm not questioning the results of the election, but I do have my voter roll for my district, about 26,000 line items on this Excel file. And I would love to see how to further, evaluate and run analytics on this file to point out these anomalies. Obviously I did the first pass on the birth dates, and there are a couple dozen over 105 years that have voted, so I flagged those. But Alan, my question is, can I hire you guys to take a look at this file? Or are there other specific, because it's the addresses, Rob, you're right. I don't know how to go through 26,000 and pick them out. But if there's anything more I can do with this file, if I can find 20% errors in my district alone, and then, times 5 in Butte County, times 58 in the state of California, I've got a story to tell. So thanks for taking the question.
Oh, thank you, Julie. Just to clarify, Alan doesn't work for Fractal. He works. He's the leader of the Mississippi Voter Integrity Project, but he does have contacts with him, so he may be able to answer your question.
Let me answer that question, Rob, if you don't mind. No, I'm not for hire. I don't work for them. I'm a private individual who's concerned and trying to make a difference, as it sounds like you are too, and thank you for running, and just keep running, and hopefully you'll win eventually. But yeah, reach out. There's a website. It's called Omega for America. That's Omega number 4 America.com. That is the program of Fractal Technology has put that site there to assist me and to assist you. You'll find videos that were done of Mississippi, Kansas, Georgia, Texas, and others. You'll find information there about the technology itself, and reach out to those people, and reach out to the people at Omega and see what they can offer you. I learned about them. I went to them. I worked with them, and I finally persuaded them, even though Mississippi is not a battleground state, and that's where a lot of effort needs to focus between now and November. But I knew that Mississippi had its own problems, and we needed it. And the people at Omega were gracious enough to work with me to bring forth what is no more than a demonstration video. We did not do a deep dive. We did not have access to the numerous databases that the Secretary of State has access to so that we could cross-reference things. We just found the tip of the iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg was enough to sink the Titanic, and it's enough to sink an election. So let's
It sure
let's
is, Al.
address
Well, we've got to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to show some more of that iceberg. Thousands of addresses where there are hundreds of people, if not more, registered at those addresses that are actively voting. And we'll be right back on the Rob Maness Show at Patriot.tv with Alan Ramsey of the Mississippi Voter Integrity Project. I'll be right back.
Consumers often ask, what should I expect when I take the Bella Grace Elixir? And the answer's varied. It really depends on what your health and wellness needs are. I would consider this as your foundational core product for a whole range of health and wellness issues. Let me give you a few examples. If you're a little bit older and you have some joint health issues, some problems with mobility and discomfort, the elixir is going to be your best friend. If you have some skin health issues, wrinkles, hydration, aging, all of those elements are going to be benefited from the elixir, including age spots. Now, if you're in a younger demographic, maybe visual health is where you need some assistance. Eye fatigue, dry eyes, all of those are going to be benefited by the elixir. It's a core product because it benefits so many.
Sounds rolling, all 3 cameras, we're good.
Is there any regrets that you have in life? I should sit here and say, yeah, I got a lot of regrets. But when I look back on my life, and I'm sitting here with you, and I can tell my story.
Former National Security Advisor Lieutenant General Michael Flynn pleaded guilty today to lying to the FBI.
He was one of the most respected generals in the military.
He was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
Really brilliant military career, serving 33 years.
Why was he being so elusive?
Mike Flynn told the truth and faced life in prison.
At the main screen. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the 2024 February voter roll, the most current one we have. We're going to ask the following question. How many people in Mississippi are on the voter roll and they live at an address with 30 or more other people? So the system tells us, do you want to look at exact address or general address? And the difference is the root address down here tells us that we're looking at 124 Main Street. But if 124 Main Street has units within it, that might be more accurate. So we have the ability to do that. So we could do either one. We're going to choose the exact search. We're going to search on that. So the first thing that happens is we go through 2.5 million records and we come up and it says, in the great state of Mississippi, there are 9,000 people, of whom 7,000 are active, who live in an address with 30 or more people. And here's who they are. So 2,238 people live at this address.
Wow. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show here live at Patriot.tv. We're talking voter integrity and how important it is and why. And that clip there just showed you over 9,000 records in the state of Mississippi where more than 30 people live at an address that they're registered at. And that you're not talking about apartment buildings here, folks. You're talking about individual addresses, because the system that they use at Fractal can let you do that. You have the choice to do that. So you're looking at one specific address. And at the end there, you heard the numbers 2,200 or more people living at one address. And that clip goes on to talk about how most of these voters are active voters. And some of them have been registered at that address for 35 years. And we're talking with Alan Ramsey, the leader of the Mississippi Voter Integrity Project, who set up this demonstration, is all it was, with the Fractal Company to look at Mississippi's voter rolls, Alan. And that's very concerning with all these addresses. But as you mentioned previously, this is a data, we look first to see it's a data issue and not necessarily a fraud issue yet, right? I mean, should we be really concerned about this? Or?
You should be really concerned about this. And the most egregious of those 9,000 that you're referencing is we have 2,200 plus registrations at a single university here in the state of Mississippi. And those addresses, those registrations have been accumulating for 35 years. Now, the average college career is 4 years. Mine was shorter than that. But, 4, 5, 6 years is kind of max for most. But we've got registrations that are still active and are still voting routinely coming from a single university address. And some of those registrations, again, 35 years old. But they're not the only one. All of our state universities have issues, some not quite so egregious, but they all have issues. Then we can, using the technology, click on an address, pop it up on a Google map, give you a roadside view, and show you that there's 30 people voting out of a commercial warehouse somewhere in downtown Jackson, those type things. So it's a cumulative thing, but certainly there are some that are worse, some addresses that are just, they stand out. They didn't take fractal and quantum computing technology to find them. All they took to find them really was an effort by the Secretary of State's office, who has adequate technology and adequate funding to find the most egregious. It's the little ones where the quantum computing really starts to shine. We put property tax rolls into that analysis we did of one county, just one county, and the technology resolved those, was able to compare the property tax rolls, which are the gold standard of who's who, with the election rolls, and show things that just don't work. Places that don't exist, or a 2-bedroom, 2-bath home that has 17 people voting out of it. And it just, these are things that you cannot find the old way. You've got to embrace new concepts and new technologies. And you can't make it a study committee and come up with a recommendation in 5 years. You've got to act boldly, decisively. We're at war, ladies and gentlemen. If I can point it and I can shoot it and it can possibly kill an enemy, then throw it over here, because the ones I've got right now don't. And we've got weapons that will work, but we got to embrace them quickly.
Yeah, and you're talking figuratively and rhetorically about tools like Fractal versus the tools that the Secretary of State's using. But like you just mentioned, something that I caught on to too as I watched the video from Fractal, and that is some of these issues the Secretary of State does have the tools to look at. Is the Secretary of State the right person to clean it up, though, in the state of Mississippi? or is there some other government function that's supposed to do that? Real quick, Alan, answer that one if you can, and then we'll go to one last question from the audience.
Yes, it starts with the Secretary of State. It is his job to maintain clean rolls and to have an ongoing, reasonable program to keep them clean. He, however, cannot take anyone off our voter rolls. That then goes down to the local 82 county election commissions. They have almost absolute authority to do that, but it begins with good information, and the secretary can hand them the information they need, and then you and I and others like us can help push our commissions to address these anomalies, resolve them, and either clean up the registration or get rid of the registration. So it's a very deliberate protocol that has to be followed.
Absolutely. Well, let's go over to our audience and take a hand. Kat, Shell, who's next?
Go ahead, Naomi.
Hi.
Hello.
Thank you, Kat, Shell, Colonel. And thank you for all that information, Mr. Ramsey. You're really getting to the crux of what one of our major problems are, and you got some solutions. That's what I'm enjoying about this. Let me ask you, as the Colonel said, President Trump did make an announcement about getting involved and cleaning up the voter rolls. Now, we don't have much longer before November. Anybody have any concept of what he's looking at, or have you heard anything?
That's a great question, Alan.
Yes, absolutely. Under new leadership at the Republican National Committee, they're now beginning to take this very issue seriously, where in the past they did not. And no, we can't clean it up by November. But what we're doing with our joint efforts across the country is we're bringing the spotlight on the problem. And in November, there are going to be tens of thousands of us sitting there with lists in our hands, watching for questionable voters that we've identified. And we're going to be challenging them in the polling place. We're going to have lawyers on standby. In the battleground states, they're organizing a literal battalion of attorneys to be there, to be on hand, and we've got to make it more difficult for the other side to do these things that we know they're doing. So this is our challenge. Again, we can't clean them all up by November, but we can bring the pressure to bear. We can begin the momentum going in the other direction, turn the tide on this, and eventually, I believe, be victorious.
Well, thank you very much, Alan, for sharing all this information with us. I think it's critically important, even though, in our particular state, we're not so concerned that it's going to affect the battleground states of the presidential election, but we've got to get on it because, as you said, we're trending purple every single year, and I think the governor's race was only had about a 5% apart between the Democrat and the Republican last time. We appreciate what you're doing, and that's a great news piece that the GOP is taking this seriously now, and they're actually putting boots on the ground and hiring attorneys to go into these battleground states to make sure that we have as secure and integrity-filled election as we possibly can and get Donald Trump reelected as the 47th president of the United States. Again, thank you very much. Keep up the great work down there in Mississippi, and we will see you later. Well, folks, that's it from Rob Maness. That's it from the Rob Maness Show today. Tomorrow is Truth Thursday, and we're talking election integrity as opposed to voter integrity today with former Congressman Jody Hice, who's the president of Family Readiness Council Action. That's the legislative body that works with the Family Research Council. And he's got a new book out all about doing the will of the people and why election integrity is so important. I'll see you tomorrow on the Rob Maness Show at Patriot.tv.
The markets are getting crazy, and now is the time to protect yourself from economic turmoil. Silver is in the headlines right now and creating lots of excitement as the price of silver is extremely attractive compared to gold. A call to Swiss America gets you the scoop on whether the silver opportunity is for real. What you'll discover will really blow your mind. Today, silver faces a huge shortage due to the rising demand by military, solar, electric cars, and computers, all of which depend on silver. But right now, silver is priced to sell according to worldwide experts. Now, to help you get started, Swiss America is offering beautiful United States Walking Liberty half dollars, issued by the U.S. Mint from 1916 to 1947 and minted in 90% pure silver for a special introductory price. Limit of $250 per customer while supplies last. So call the number on your screen or visit SwissAmerica.com, because now is the time to rediscover silver.